Going to talk about the injury bug that's bitten both teams, but we're also going to talk about good news, and that is Rayshawn Jenkins. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's happening? What's going on, y'all? Thank you for welcoming you to another edition of Locked On Jaguars, if that makes sense at all. No, but we're glad to have you today here on Locked On Jaguars because it is your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Got a quick reminder: we are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. Make sure you go to YouTube, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe and then hit that bell so you get notifications every single time we drop an episode. And then wherever you listen to your podcast, when you listen to audio podcasts, make sure that you tap into that source every single day to make sure you don't miss an episode. I want to shout out to the everydayers. I know I feel like I've been neglecting y'all just a little bit because, well, I've just been going through it and dealing with so much stuff. And then the season is going so well, after a little bit of a drop at the beginning, everything seems like it's getting back on track. So no drama to speak of. But I'm going to get back to y'all. Trust me. And also thank you for everybody who keeps checking in on me. I'm doing marvelous. I am doing fabulous. I'm doing fine. So thank you very much for all your well wishes as well. Look, man, we got to talk about some good news sometimes, and we go over this all the time. So I'm going to tell you what the show is about today. We're going to talk about we're going to say the word injury. I normally say the I word. We're going to say it today. We're going to talk about injuries because it doesn't just affect the Jaguars, it affects other people. I usually refrain from using that word, and the only reason I do it is because I don't want to get caught speaking things into existence, right? So I never say healthy. I never say injury. I always say just try to avoid not being unhealthy or avoid being unhealthy or try to stay healthy. It's my little way of making the podcast more like real football when coaches say protect the football as opposed to don't fumble. But the inevitable happens. Guys get banged up. So we'll talk about that. In segment 2, I'm gonna give you an update of why the Saints injury report looks like the MetLife VIP invitational list, and the Jaguars, it doesn't make you feel bad at all about your guys being injured. But then in segment 3, I'm going to talk about why it's dangerous, super dangerous for you or any of us to sit here and think this whole phrase next man up. If I recall, that was the first time I heard it. The way I heard it was always out of Sean Payton's mouth. He's no longer the coach, but I'm sure that organization still believes the next man up, and they're going to preach that, and it's dangerous. Those next men can be dangerous for a game here or a game there. We've seen it throughout history. We've even seen it here for Jacksonville, so we have to watch for that. But first, we're going to get to Rayshawn Jenkins. I always talk about, and this is what I almost said earlier, I always talk about guys that are above the X's and O's, like guys that do things that help the football team win. You go into it thinking, we don't need all that. We just need you to do this. But then they exceed that and they start doing something else, right? And just like next man up, that can happen every blue moon, happen once in a while. But when a guy consistently does something over and over again, you have to realize that, and we all have to realize that that is not just an anomaly, and it is not just a guy playing out of his mind. At some point, we have to change the floor of what we expect from a player. And now I'm starting to expect Rayshawn Jenkins to be great all the time. All right. He reminds me of another Jenkins who played for Doug Peterson, Malcolm. In fact, Malcolm also played for the Saints for a long time, but he reminds me of a player like that you can count on in that box and that you can count on in coverage. That's really, really giving this team an extra boost. Like, as much as I've talked about Andre Cisco and Tyson Campbell, who's out this week being a star or being stars in that secondary, And we were always wanting to find that other safety. Most people wanted it to be Brian Branch, who's in the slot, but eventually he's probably going to end up taking over being a starting safety too for Detroit. Everybody always, we were trying to figure out how to replace him. Antonio Johnson, the kid that we still have high hopes for, we were sitting there hoping that he at some point would be the long-term answer, because with all of the guys that they have to retain and re-sign, nobody thought that Rayshawn Jenkins was one of them. It was going to be, thank you for your contribution. You've been a really good player, a really good teammate, but you know what? We're going to move on to some other stuff here. We're going on to some bigger players. We're going on to some better players, some guys that'll give us a chance to be long-term better at that position. We're always trying to, and then it's like, wait a minute, hold up, dude. Hold up. We have to really watch what this guy has been able to do for the Jaguars. And we have to really, really start showing more appreciation for his actual contribution on the field. And then we have to realize the things that he does are not that replaceable. I would challenge y'all to find me 10 strong safeties that have had the impact that Rayshawn Jenkins has had. I saw it early in training camp too, and I saw it during mini camps. I was like, you know what, man? Rayshawn is intercepting that ball a little bit more than he used to. He's getting his hands on some stuff and some passing lanes that he didn't get his hands on those things before. So I was sitting there thinking, like, maybe, just maybe, is it because he feels like everyone is saying that he's going to be one of those cats that ends up getting replaced? Is it because maybe we just overlooked him and maybe he got more comfortable with the system and all of that stuff? And I don't know what it is, but I tell you what, he is a heck of a signing, man. That is one signing that the Jaguars should not feel any regret at all. So I'm gonna go over his contract real quick. That I've been sitting here. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I can usually walk and chew bubble gum at the same time, but I can't talk and do other stuff without y'all noticing that I'm doing other stuff. So now he's under contract through the 2024 season. If in 2024 it looks like his cap hit is going to be about $12 million, right? And $7 million of that is dead money that they've already given it. So it's like a $5 million difference that they have to make up. Could they possibly give him an extension, give him a little bit more cash and lower that number for 2024? It's possible. It's possible that happens. He'll be 30 years old after the 2024 season. Do you just wait and let's see? Because that's the danger in this. If you wait to see, and if the Jaguars are right in the middle of something that's special over this year and next year, and I know everybody wants to win the Super Bowl this year, and I'm not saying it ain't going to happen, right? But if you make a run and you think the next step is the Super Bowl next year, they're still going to be flat out in the middle of a nice run. So I think there's a lot of things that will come into play or not, whether or not Rayshawn Jenkins hangs around. That is, if they extend him now or extend him after this year, stretch his contract out another couple of years until he's like 32 years old, give him some cash up front, lower his cap number, and maybe only anticipate that he's going to be here in 24 and 25, and then you'll turn it loose because you think maybe you have something in Antonio Johnson. That's one of the things that you could look at. But I think it gets more difficult to re-sign him after 2024. And I know y'all don't want to look that far ahead, but I guarantee you somebody in that building is doing it because you have to. But the bottom line is the fact that I'm having this conversation with you, it tells you that Rayshawn Jenkins has been a really, really good player and a really, really good addition for the Jacksonville Jaguars this season. And I just think that that's huge, man. I think it's huge. And I think it actually pushes whatever you want them to be. I think this gives them a chance, and this enables them to do it on a much faster pace, at a much faster pace than anyone thought that they would be able to. So we'll discuss more about Rayshawn Jenkins and get to the injury report from both teams ahead of tomorrow's game. And I'm going to tell you something, it is extensive. I think Trevor's going to play. I'll give you an idea of why I believe that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. But first, I have to let you know that today's sponsor for our show is eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're preparing for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. And right now, I'm going to tell you, it's Christian Watson. I got him in both of my leagues, and he's back fully healthy for the Packers and set to keep making a huge second-year wide receiver impact for Jordan Love as a big play and red zone threat. Watson, for the Week 7 bye, saw 7 targets against the Raiders, catching 3 for 91 yards. He should be more locked into producing with a good chance to score in a fine matchup against the Broncos. Yuck, Denver's bad. Back on the road in the AFC West in Week 7. Green Bay can exploit a struggling secondary with Watson's combination of size and speed. He also gets a terrific spot back at home in Week 8 versus the Vikings. Now, Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. What do they say? If it doesn't apply, let it fly. Well, tell you what does apply, and that is you guys applying your time and resources to come check me out here on Locked On Jaguars, and it is greatly appreciated because it is your team. It ain't my team. It's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. The Jags are banged up, man. Banged up, and I got to give you some of this little injury report. I got to let you know, now on the surface, it sounds bad for Jacksonville. It really, really does. It sounds bad for Jacksonville until you realize it's not as bad as you think it is. I'll tell you why I say that. Because the Jaguars will be without Tyson Campbell. Nobody wants to be without a corner that good, especially Jacksonville. And then what we saw in the second half when he left the game last week, it's going to be a challenge making sure that those guys stay with who they're supposed to stay with. Tyson Campbell's out. Devon Hamilton, even though he came back to practice, he's out. It's a short week. They haven't done very much. I'll be looking for him possibly the week after next. Zay Jones had a brief appearance in London, and now he's back out again with a knee. I love how people say he's out with a knee. No, he's out because he's missing a knee. That, the knee ain't right, but he's out with a knee. Like he's out with an extra knee. It's like he catch a dude on a date. He's at a drive-in, and there's a knee sitting in his other seat of his car. But that's just a sports thing we always say. So I'll just go ahead and keep up with it. Trevor Lawrence was limited in practice. Took his brace off at the press conference, and I think everybody said, "Oh, he'll be good." He says he's going to do every single thing to get out there. Nathan Rourke was signed to the active roster. I just think you have to do that at this point. If you got one guy that's a little bit gimpy, you want to make sure that you have enough people to play that position. Brandon Sheriff has an ankle. I did it again. He was limited today, and he's also questionable. So 2 guys are questionable, and Walker Little with a knee is out. I just love it. Y'all got to forgive me because I keep saying with a knee, with an ankle, but it is what it is. Now, that's a lot to feel bad about because as 2/3 of the offensive line is banged up, and one of them, or 2/5 of the offense, 40% of the starting offensive line is banged up. One of them won't be there. So we already know that is Walker Little, and Brandon Sheriff will be a little bit limited. Will Trevor play? It makes a world of a difference of whether or not the Jaguars will be favored to win the game. Zay Jones, until they get him back, teams won't really see the whole plethora of the wide receiver core. Devon Hamilton, they played without him all year. Doesn't mean they don't need him. And Tyson Campbell, of course, that one really hurts, especially with a team with really, really good receivers like New Orleans. So it's enough to feel concerned and enough to feel worried about. The fact that Trevor Lawrence's name alone is on an injury report, that's always problematic. But it could be worse. It could be worse in a number of ways. And it's not as bad as it seems because I looked at New Orleans' injury report and oh my God. Tight end Juwan Johnson, he's out with a calf. Safety JT Gray, I don't know much about him, but he's out too. Tackle Landon Young, don't know much about him, but he's out. James Hurst, who I do remember from the University of North Carolina, and the fact that he's a veteran, he is also out. And tight end Ryan Ramczyk, and that's a big one because he's a real good player. He's out as well. Questionable linebacker Demario Davis with a knee. He's with a knee. Okay, he's a really, really good player. He was limited the last 2 days. Safety Lonnie Johnson is questionable. He's limited. Cam Jordan, he's a full participant today. Ooh. Out of all the people on this list, I don't want nobody to be hurt, but out of all the people on this list, that's the one guy I was like, okay, if he's on there, that's cool. But he looked like he's going to play. Tyrann Mathieu was limited. He's questionable. Chris Olave was a full participant in today's practice. I would expect to see him tomorrow. He has a toe injury, so no telling that could go bad at any moment. Andrews Pete is a full participant because if he wasn't, that would have been 4 offensive linemen or 3 that would have been on this injury report. And that's never a good thing. Running back Jamal Williams, who's been gone for a long time, was a full participant for he was limited today also. He's still questionable. It looks like he might go. And Derek Carr, the starting quarterback, was a full participant the last 2 days. So be careful what you complain about because you could be the New Orleans Saints and have their kind of problems. By the way, shout out to Locked On Saints and host Ross Jackson. We will give you that crossover show. I might make it available at midnight. All right. I might make it available early so everybody can go ahead and get to it and dissect it. Because me and Ross, we talk a lot, but we've never done a show. I don't think we've done a show other than one of those mass shows that we do when we have the entire division. But I know the one year they were playing the Saints, I missed it. I missed the interview with him and I missed the one with your boy Q. So we will make sure we get that done and get that out to you as soon as possible. But yeah, man, the injury situation could be worse for the actual Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to tell you something else too. We got to watch out for these little wounded teams. Don't get caught in this trap. And I'm not saying this so I can come back and look like a genius tomorrow because anybody can say, like I can tell you right now, you better watch out, man. A lizard might bite your foot off. Knowing that it's unlikely to happen, but if it ever does, you can say, Wig, how did you know a lizard could bite off a foot? Well, I didn't. I just said something and it just happened to you because you got bad luck. But look, don't be letting these teams become limping in here and then you feeling sorry for them and then you leave with a lump on your head and a loss. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to tell you why it's important for us to watch out for that foolishness. It is super that you prepare in your mind. And I hope the Jaguars players are doing the same thing, man, because let me tell you something. Ain't nothing worse. Nothing. There's nothing worse than losing to a team that you ain't supposed to lose to, especially a team that's banged up. You got a bunch of backups whooping you up and down the field. I'll tell you why you have to watch out for that and how you can avoid those pitfalls. I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. But first, I have to let you know that today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Man, BetterHelp is there for you. If you need therapy and if you thought about using therapy because you just can't get out of your own way, and even if you haven't thought about therapy, if you're having problems trying to figure out how to move because of anything that you've been through, man, BetterHelp is the place that can give you some ways to be able to cope and some ways to be able to handle things. Now, I've used BetterHelp in the past, and it was marvelous. I even had to switch therapists, and it was seamless, and it was wonderful. It was all online. It wasn't invasive. And these therapists are licensed. So if you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way, here's what you do. Talk to BetterHelp, and BetterHelp can teach you ways to get out of your own way, and you can start making real good decisions. All you got to do is just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with one of our licensed therapists and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. I'll go slow and spell it again. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Therapy is always a good thing, especially when it comes from people like the folks at BetterHelp. All right, man, we're rolling along here. Locked On Jaguars here on Hump Day, getting you ready for a Thursday night game. It feels different when your week is a little bit abbreviated and you have to like step right into the fire when you're still not quite geared down, if you will, from all that exciting action that you saw last Sunday. How do you avoid the pitfalls of getting beat by a team that's all banged up? Because this team has a mantra of next man up, and all teams have adopted it. But I think the Saints were like one of the first people where I constantly heard that from all the time. Like, they're built, let me tell you something. They're built with explosive players on offense, and the guys I'm talking about are going to play. Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara's back. They may get Jamal Williams back for short yard situations. They use Taysom Hill in a whole bunch of different ways. Derek Carr can definitely beat you with his arm. On defense, they're built with guys that can cover. Marshawn Lattimore, I called him Marcus yesterday. My bad, Marcus and Marshawn. Marshawn Lattimore can really, really guard your number one receiver. So that's going to be an interesting matchup with him and Calvin Ridley if he follows Calvin. The other thing is Demario Davis, who's banged up, is a sideline to sideline heat-seeking missile. Is one of the most underrated linebackers. Like, nobody ever mentions him as like a future Hall of Famer, but he reminds me of that Zach Thomas and Jesse Tuggle dude that's going to play for 12 to 14 years, and his peers will think that he's fabulous. And then folks will go, is he a Hall of Famer? Is he not a Hall of Famer? Yeah, he probably is a Hall of Famer, and he's played that way, but he's a super professional guy. Cam Hayward, that was not Cam Hayward, Cam Jordan. Well, Cam Hayward is too, but Cam Jordan, who plays for the Saints, who's banged up also, but he was a full participant in practice. Cam Jordan is a Hall of Famer, and if you don't think so, then I don't know what to tell you. He has been a model football player and person in the organization for the New Orleans Saints. I think Tyrann Mathieu, the safety, is also knocking at that door, and Marshawn Lattimore is right there too. So what I'm telling you is they got some guys on that defense that know how to get after it and move around a little bit at every single level. Their head coach, Dennis Allen, is a defensive coach by trade. Therefore, there's been some consistency on that side of the ball, even with Sean Payton and Drew Brees leaving the organization over the last few years. It has not affected that side of the ball whatsoever. So when you have that type of leadership, plus combined with explosive players on offense, it doesn't take much now. A Thursday night game at home, with a raucous crowd and everybody ready to party on Bourbon Street, it doesn't take much motivation for you to say, hey, man, everybody's doubting us out. Everybody's saying that we're not going to win and we're all banged up and our injury report is long. And we can't fall into that trap as fans. And I hope to God somebody is over there at the Miller Electric Training Center. I hope they are beating it in their head. Do not look at that injury report. Do not think that this team ain't going to be ready to play. Do not focus so much on some of the negative things that have happened to them to get them to the point where they are 3-3 as opposed to having a better record. Do not get caught slipping and thinking that these dudes can't jump up and jump all over you, because they can. I mean, they got little slot receivers. Like, they got guys who earlier this year, I think Derek Carr was like, hey, man, go get open. And he threw it and dude got open, and he's not even like a starter. So watch out, watch yourself, and don't think that this team can't jump up and get you, because they absolutely can. You have to be ready to go. They're going to be pumped. The city's going to be on fire. It's a national televised game. I wonder what the Jaguars are wearing in uniforms. I hope it don't have no black in it, because I think the Saints are going to wear black. I know they're going to wear black shirts. So I hope the Jaguars, I want them to go with teal pants. I have to find out what the attire is. And y'all think that stuff doesn't matter, but some of these guys have a little bit of superstition in them, and they like to look and feel a certain way. But I just want to be able to look at the TV and see the difference and make sure I can tell who is who on that TV screen. So here's the key. I'm going to save most of my keys to victory for our crossover show, but here's the key. thinking right offhand, and I can't leave the injury situation out of it. Here's the thing. Whoever wins the line of scrimmage is going to win the game. Congratulations, Tony Wiggins. You have said the most cliche thing ever said about football on this podcast. You get 25 minutes in and you drop this thing on people that everyone says that anybody who's ever coached, played, or listened to football could have told you somebody was going to say. But this week it means even more. That is because if Trevor Lawrence plays, he's not as mobile as he usually is, right? That's one point. Both teams have injuries along their offensive front, and both teams' strength is their defensive line. Therefore, whoever can get the most pressure on the other quarterback and whoever can stop the run and create longer down and distance situations will win the game. How about that? It's just that simple. So, yeah, that's the thing. A quick recap. Don't pay too much attention to the injury report because it could actually motivate. Those guys could be motivated like hell to prove. Everybody out there getting paid. So some guys are really, really motivated to prove that they belong. And that's what you have to watch out for. How the Jaguars can get over their injuries. We talked about Trevor Lawrence. We talked about some of the other spots that the Jaguars be banged up. And then Rayshawn Jenkins. Can Rayshawn Jenkins continue that stellar play alongside of Andre Sisco? What it does when you have two really good safeties and they trust each other, everybody else, they can know everybody else is going to do their job, right? You can lend a little bit of a helping hand to your guys on the outside. The biggest thing is right now with Montaric Brown starting, they have to make sure they cover him if they're playing quarters, right? If they're in some sort of cover two with the safeties and they're playing man, they got to make sure that Montaric, if he doesn't get the bump, you got to look over there and you got to be over there early enough if they try to run something deep down the sidelines. But other than that, man, I'm looking forward to the game, and I think you should too. To all of those people that are in New Orleans, I know there's about 500 members of the brigade, and I think they are already there. You guys make sure you're safe. And the reason why I'm calling you out on here, because I know y'all are listening, right? Be very, very safe. Have fun, though. Let it all hang loose tonight, and get ready for the game on tomorrow. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL, the podcast. It is free on YouTube as well. Monday through Friday, your team every day, just like here. Make it your next listen and your next watch. It is free on YouTube, and I'm telling you, it will give you all the big stories from around the National Football League. I may be on the Friday show this week, or we might find I may be covering the Jaguars, so they may get someone else to do the Friday show. I'll let you know, or you'll see. If you look up Friday and you'll see me, it's because I'm somewhere asleep because I was covering the Jaguars all night long. So make sure you check out Locked On NFL. It's your team every day and make that your next watch. Till the next time, you guys make sure you take care of each other and yourself. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.